It's like we're changing the operating system. You have these computers and then you have operating systems. So when we were younger, we used to wait for the next update to come out. It would come on these. Earlier it would come on the larger floppies, and then it would come on these smaller floppy drives. So the next, like Windows is coming, so you would install it like that. So Satsang is like that. We're changing our operating system. It is not that you're patching the existing software, you're making it better, changing the entire way of operation. Because our foundation right now is shaky. It is based on changeable thing. It is based on that which changes, it's based on our mind, it is based on the changing perceptions of the world. And because the foundation is based on this, then our life itself seems quite shaky. So if you're going to come to steady ground, it cannot be based on just belief. If it's not audible, or if you can come closer if you like. If we base it on the basis of belief, then because beliefs themselves are unsteady, it will continue to be shaky. So the starting point is that the new operating system is not based on a belief that the truth is within you or that God is within you. Not the belief, but the discovery. Not a thought, not a concept, but the insight itself. Because still you find that this is true, you discover, you recognize that this is true. Till then it will continue to be shaky and we will continue to be attached to things of the outer rather than the real inside. So the switching over from the operating system of the head to the operating system of the heart is what I'm calling the way of the heart. And to live in the way of the heart, there are two elements. One is the intuitive insight into your reality, and the second is the way of faith as to how to live once you have a true insight about what you are. You see? And then that itself allows us to live with this strong foundation of God itself. So that is the attempt in Satsang. How do I come to a true intuitive insight about what I am? And then once I see what I really am, how do I deal with the apparent flows and ups and downs of life, and what is the right way to live? And both are not actually different. Like in the insight about who you are, the how to live becomes quite apparent, and in the how to live, the who you are becomes quite apparent. But in the meanwhile, in the interim, we can make these provisional categories. So all of us, at least in India, have been told since we were kids that God is within you. Please come. Okay, quick recap for both of you since you just came. So what I'm saying is that spirituality is not a change to an existing way of life. It is a complete overhaul of the operating system itself. And I was telling them that when I was younger, then We would wait for the next operating system to come, and then when it came, we would be excited about the changes that it would bring. So what is the operating system for most of humanity at the moment? It is the way of the head, it is the way of the mind. Okay? Now to switch out of that into the way of the heart is the new way of life. It is not the completion of a pie chart which we make about our life to say that, okay, I have a physical life, I have a mental life, I have an emotional life, and now I will have a spiritual life. Spirituality is not that. Spirituality is the complete overhaul of the operating system, the mechanics of our very existence and how we exist. Firstly, it is that. Secondly, it is not based on a new belief. So I'm not going to ask you to believe anything. I'm not going to ask you to believe that God is within you. I'm not going to ask you to believe that there is an Atma. I'm not going to ask you to believe that there is no difference between Atma and Paramatma. I'm not going to ask you to believe any of this. The attempt is to show it to you. Show it to you so that it doesn't become shaky like the rest of our life. Where we live a lot in the way of the mind, it is beliefs which are dominant. I believe this, I believe that, and we are willing to kill and be killed for our belief systems. But greater than belief is true insight. So this switch over from head to heart, from the way of the head to the way of the heart, has two elements which are, like to use Bhagwan's metaphor, they are the two wings of the bird. The two elements are what? The way of intuitive insight and the way of faith. You see? And note that I'm making a distinction between belief and faith, and we'll get to what that distinction is. So the first element, of course, is to make the discovery apparent to you. Make who you are apparent to you. Because everybody, especially in India, believes that this world is Maya and God is actually within us. There's no problem in the belief. You see? But beliefs by their very nature are flimsy, and that is why suffering still continues to perpetuate, and we don't live in the reality of what we are. We live in the make-believe mental world, the narrative, the world of narratives. So how do we move from that into the stronger foundation of reality, whether we call it God or we call it Brahman? How do we come to the discovery of that? First, it's important to consider how it is not going to happen. You see, because it is the how not to do it which most spiritual seekers don't get. So most spiritual seekers are in a trap of trying to achieve the results which are not possible with the tools that they are using. So how not to do this discovery? First is that you will not find God or truth or self in an objective way. No matter how hard you try, the self will never be an object of discovery. It will never be an experience of perception. If it was objective, then it would be spatial and it would be in time. If it was an object to be discovered, then somebody would have figured out where it is, mapped the latitude and longitude of it and said, here is where the self is. You see? But through the world of perception, through our senses, whether we look on the seeming outside or we look on the seeming inside, we cannot find the self. cannot find the self. At best, the perceptual byproducts of our spiritual experiences are what I like to call the prasad along the journey, the offerings that you get when you visit a temple. So that is as much as we can value those. So we cannot perceive, we cannot do this as an objective search. We cannot proceed through our senses, through sight, through taste, touch, smell, hearing. None of these methods will bring us the truth. It's very, very important because most spiritual seekers are still waiting for the experience of the self. It's not going to happen. The self is not objectifiable. It can never become an object in this realm, because then all that we are seeking for from it would have to first be discarded. We are seeking all there is. The all-pervasive, the all-knowing. It is not possible if it was just an object. So it would not be a fair exchange if we said, give up on all your best aspects and show me you as an object. It's not a worthwhile trade-off. The second way not to do it is to come up with concepts, come up with ideas about God. They do serve some purpose in the negation. At best, you can negate your ideas about God, like the method of niti-niti in Vedanta is very helpful there, where anything that you can think or conceptualize about God, it's not that. It's not this, not this, not this. So, one of the most beautiful lines I've ever read in my life is about Guru Nanak Ji saying that we may think and think and think 100,000 times, but God will never be a product of our thinking. It's not conceptualizable at all. So, if I've met you here, which is that I've told you and you met me here, that you cannot perceive God and you cannot conceptualize God. I mean, you can, but it will never be reality. Both of these methods may give you some fake evidence, and that may perpetuate the Maya, the Leela of all of this, but it will never be your reality. If you can truly meet me here, then the inside part of the struggle is mostly done, because it is the what not to do which seems more difficult along the journey. Usually some helplessness is normal on hearing this, because we feel like perception and the ability to conceptualize are the only tools we have. What else do we have? We feel that, but now I'm all lost, it's all randomized. I don't know whether it can happen. And you're right that these are the tools of effort that you have. The tools of effort that you have been discarded now. You can try to find, looking through sight, through hearing, you can try to find, through effort. You see? And you can try to think now. A square plus B square equals God AB. Will not get you there. You may think and think. It's just not possible. So now you've come to a helpless openness, if you really heard me. And that, if it's not helpless, it's a nice, effortless openness. But helplessness is alright as well. It's alright as well. But at least the wrong tools you're not trying to use. So you're already out of the Arjuna conundrum, where you're still hankering for, getting feverish about a perceptual experience of God. Already we are beyond those games. Now, this is the starting point of the introduction to your intuitive insight or your Sadguru presence or your heart or the divinity within. Now, if I propose to you that anything of value in your true reality is only known beyond these two mechanisms of perception and concept, mind and senses, then what would you say? What can you value in this world? I am proposing that that which is valuable is only known in this way. So suppose you say that I am not very spiritual, but I know I love my partner, I love my children, I love my parents. Any of those. Now that love you know, independent of the feeling which may be there in the moment. And as parents, even as children, most of us know that many times the feeling is of frustration or of anger or something else. It's not always lovey-dovey. And yet you are the parent of the child. Do you love the other? You say yes. Independent of what emotion there may be, there is a knowledge about this. Some of you say, I don't know why I started coming to Satsang. And even after coming, I wasn't understanding anything you were saying. I wasn't understanding anything you were saying. It seemed too difficult or abstract, or maybe you're not being nice and not saying nonsensical. But I knew I had to come. I knew I had to come. Many have reported this about the particular days. You see, today I just didn't want to come. I had too much work. I had too much resistance to coming. I didn't want to hear you at all. But my bike drove me to your building. Which is another way of saying that somewhere else I knew I had to come. So we talked about love. We talked about love for the master in some way, but also getting drawn to satsang, even though it may not be giving us anything apparently. So these are just two examples which come close to our operation in the world. Many of us will also admit that when we look back at the past, we will say for the most important things that just happened to be at the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time. But mostly, in hindsight, we are able to say something just happened, it turned out like that. So there is something beyond perception and mind. There is a knowledge beyond perception and mind which maybe in your most tantrumy, resistive state also gets you to satsang. You say, I just knew I had to come. I knew I had to come. What knowledge is that? What knowledge is love? Many people who never come to satsang, relatives and friends, I get them to the satsang side and many times, you see, like 70-80% of the time they say, I feel something here. feel something when I enter the satsang side. It's not a feeling. It's like a calling from the heart. When I saw Guruji for the first time, I knew in my heart that I could surrender fully. He hadn't spoken to me, he was just coming down the stairs. But I already knew that this struggle, this problem of finding God is his problem now. I knew this, but it was not a thought. And he was not sending some perceivable ways. So intuitively, all that is of value is already known to us. Now let's see if the truth that we are seeking is also known intuitively. When I ask you, can you stop being? You know that you cannot. You know that you cannot. Now you may but say that, but I notice it. I notice that there is a presence here. Is it? So is that not perceptual? That's a fair question you may ask. Actually it isn't, but let's explore. You may notice the byproduct of this beingness, which may be localized in your heart, your head, around your body, in the room, whatever your experience may be. But that is the byproduct of your being. Because when I ask you the question, does this being have a boundary? You will inevitably say no. Following? You will inevitably say no. It tells me already that intuitively you can know the boundless being, although you may be also experiencing a perceptual byproduct of this being, because that which is boundless you can never perceive. You can only perceive that with boundaries, only localized objects. So then, can this die? Was this born? All of these questions you answer inevitably in the negatives, although you cannot derive this knowledge from the perception that you are having at this moment. So what knowledge are you relying on? It's not conceptual. It's not because you were told that the being has no boundary. It is because you know it. But it's a different type of knowing. But it is of the same variety that I knew that I had to come to Satsang. The same variety that I know I love my kids, family, Sangha, music. The same variety. Very good. So if we can meet over here, we've already crossed over the pristine discovery of the Atma itself. You're realizing that you cannot do it through empirical means. You're realizing that it is completely effortlessly possible intuitively. And it is independent of any time or location. All those things do not matter. So what's happening in the objective universe does not matter as far as the discovery of your beingness or consciousness is concerned. This is the simplicity of the heart, the simplicity of intuitive insight. Effortless. If you're taking an effort, you're going in the wrong direction. You don't have to do anything at all. My words are pointing you very gently to it, and with the innocence, as much innocence as you can muster, just follow along. There's nothing that you have to do. Now if I ask you whether you are aware now, the answer is already with you. Instantly, immediately, without any mechanics or effort. And that which does not need mechanics or effort is called intuitive or aparoksha. So this, not only that there is awareness, but also that I am aware, is apparent to you only effortlessly. This I, which you cannot locate in time or space, and yet intuitively you're very comfortable calling it I. I am aware, which is not distinct from I am awareness itself. It is just, I am speaking the words of your heart. No effort again is needed for this discovery. So this Nirguna Brahman, your absolute reality without attributes, is also recognized effortlessly, intuitively from your heart. Of course, some of your minds must be complaining, but can I stay like this? All that. You can keep aside for now, don't worry. Some of your minds will also complain and say, but you're not really getting it, you're faking it. You're not really coming to the discovery of awareness, you're just faking it. It is not for you, you are not worthy, you're not even paying attention. All these doubts can come. But really it is impossible to do this wrong. You may try hard to do it wrong, but you still can't do it wrong. To notice that you are the witnessing principle, which is aware of all these perceptions, you can try, but you can't do it wrong. It's impossible. Because in intuition, there is no right way or wrong way. The only wrong is if you're trying to use your mind or your senses. If you're not using those, then you can't do it wrong. There is no possibility of wrong in intuition. So to recognize that I am awareness, that I am empty of attributes. I am changeless. I am the pure witnessing. I do not have a start or an end. Nothing in the world can really touch me in my reality. Nothing can burn me, scratch me, or dent me in any way. It's just effortless, intuitive insight. It is universally available for those who are willing to step away from their heads and their perceptions for a moment. That's all it takes. So this is Atma Jnana, self-recognition, Atma Darshan, whatever you want to call it. This is the knowledge of Brahman itself, Brahma Jnana. So this is what I'm calling the way of insight. So now some of you may say, Ananta, this is quite straightforward. It's quite apparent. Why do I need faith? Because it is insight. And you're right that on most spiritual paths, it is the way of faith which comes before the way of insight, in the way that it is shared. Here what I found is that God is playing it differently. So insight seems quite natural and available for most of the Sangha. But strangely, even after the insight being apparent, the questions about what I'm meant to do, how should I run my life, all the questions which are related to the conditioning of the non-existent one and non-existent in our very own discovery, still seem to hold some potency on us, power over us. So all the conditions have not yet dissolved. You see? Of course, to dissolve them, we can continue to remain in the inquiry, in the darshan of the self. You see? But I have another tool for you. And what I found is that one of the most potent ways to dissolve these conditions or blow them up is to surrender deeply and completely to God's will. So this is what I call the way of faith. Okay, so to surrender deeply and in fact completely to God's will is to follow the will of your heart, to follow your intuitive insight. Now, you already have an advantage here because in most places you may complain, how do I know what is the will of my heart? What is my intuitive desire? What is God's will? Here you cannot be confused or lost there because you are only being intuitive because as long as the self is apparent to you, it can only be apparent through your intuitive insight. Yourself can only be apparent to you through your intuitive insight. So if you're living in what I'm calling God's light, living in the Sadguru presence, because the self is apparent only through the Sadguru presence, in the light of this intuitive insight, then to follow the will of God, or as Guru Nanak Ji has advised us to do, to live in the hukum. It's straightforward, because if your being is apparent to you, if your self is apparent to you, you're being intuitive, and in the light of that, how your life naturally unfolds, of course, is unfolding only in God's will. But not just that. If there is guidance or something has to be revealed to you, even those words can get revealed to you in your heart. Just like the words of Satsang get revealed in the Master's heart, and then they are shared in the heart-to-mouth process with no mind involved. The same Sadguru presence is your very heart. And in self-knowledge, all knowledge is contained anyway. The only thing is that it will not dance to your individual desires, egoic needs. So you cannot use it in that way. In fact, I would never wish it to be used in that way, because then the spiritual ego would get fully magnified and very difficult to chop down. So it's a very good gift that you cannot use it in that way. Some, of course, get the blessings of some siddhis and things like that, but that's okay. That's another conversation in itself. So live your life in your heart, in God's light, and allow it to unfold organically from there. When life seems to force you to make a decision, should I travel there? Should I get into this relationship? Should I take this job? Some of these can seem like they are important decisions for us to make. And my advice, guidance, pleading with all of you is that unless it is clear in your heart, don't move. Don't move. Especially when the mind is saying, you don't have time for that. Especially when the mind is saying, rush, rush. Don't move, because it will become clear in your heart. So in all cultures, all traditions, you will find that this aspect of following God's will, this devotion, this obedience is very, very important. It's very, very important. We have such beautiful examples like Hanuman, of course, is possibly the prime example of it in our tradition and culture. In Islam, to be a Muslim means that you follow God's will. That is the literal meaning of Islam. In Christianity, the only sin really is to follow individual desire and not follow God's will. In Sikhism, we just said that the prime guidance, which all the Sikhs are meant to chant every morning, tells you how to be free, how to come to the truth. There is only one way, which is to follow the hukum, where hukum is nothing but God's will, or God's command actually. So this is the fiery surrender. It is not the usual lukewarm surrender that we find in spiritual movements where we get emotional, you see, and then you say, I'm fully surrendered to you. And then within 10 minutes that can change and we go back to just following our individual desires and our individual will. So, how do you know that you're following God's will? Especially in the times of confusion. Right now you may be clear. First ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want? With all the pointers at your disposal, with all your spiritual muscles that you have now, let go of that. If you can't let go of that, inquire into it, pray into it, surrender in whatever way. It's very important to let go of what you want. It's also important not to jump to the opposite of what you think you want. And say, oh, now I wanted this. Like many times in Satsang we see, I was resisting coming up, so I decided I must come up. It sounds alright, it's okay. It's provisionally, it's okay. That we think we outsmarted the mind by doing the opposite of what it wanted. But the mind is also quick to then play along. It still got you, dancing to its tunes. It just has to say the opposite. So don't jump to the conclusion that I must do the opposite of what I want, and that will be God's will. It is not that simplistic. You must let go of your hankering, of your feverishness to what you think you want, and return to your heart. Return to God's light. And that is why one of my favorite questions to ask you these days is, are you living in God's light? Are you living in God's light? So return to God's light. Even if it feels invisible at the moment, especially if it feels invisible, and you seem completely lost, then don't move. Because a moment of patience and waiting for God is worth many lifetimes of rushed activity. So don't move. In the light of your presence, unimpeded by your head, actions may naturally start to unfold in a way, and you can trust those actions. If there's still a pressure for a decision, a call that you have to take, then wait to be guided from the heart. Even if you spend your whole lifetime waiting, still worth it. That much trust you need to have, that much risk you need to take. When you are guided in this way, you have to trust this guidance unwaveringly. Unwaveringly. Then you cannot put it into any sort of benchmarks and say, no, not this, not that, whatever. You have to follow it unwaveringly. But when you do waver, don't beat yourself up with guilt. Beat a hasty retreat back to your heart. Return to God's light. Let go of your individuality. As right or as solid or as true as that individual will may seem, in fact, you will be confronted by all your knowledge and all your righteousness almost immediately as you embark on this way of faith. But to follow God's will, to be obedient to God's will, is to return to the innocence of a child. This is true freedom. Although it may seem like you have gone from freedom into a God-dictated life, you have only gone from a mental slavery to following the true light of this universe. The intelligence which is running this universe is a much better guide to our life than our limited selfish minds. If you find yourself faltering, return to your intuitive insight. It will never leave you. That becomes your anchor in this new life. So, this is the complete change of the operating system. We've gone from a limited, wrongly identified, flimsy, changeful existence to a life with the solid foundation of God itself, both in terms of insight and in terms of how to live, what should happen. But remember that these two ways, if you can call it that, are not compatible. You cannot do a bit of this and then a bit of that. When you get in trouble with your head, say, like that. You see? And when your desires start to overwhelm you, you say, no, I'll go back to my head just for a bit and then come back. And this is what I mean when I've been saying that this you have to decide for God. You have to decide for God is to say, come what may, I will live in the way of the heart. Of course, the Advaitin in you will scream and say, but I am not the decision maker, I am not the doer, who is there to decide? You decide. Those are just resistance. So before we get to questions, this is the lay of the land, basically. This is the metaphor of the two birds, two wings of the bird, as Bhagavan said. This is the life, the new life, driven in the heart, from the heart, then from the head. And there is no middle road. You cannot live in the way of the neck. Half here, half there. question. It's fine, it's good. I was asking if the question is there. Or... What is the main difference in the way of the head, the way of the mind, and the way of the heart? The main difference is the central protagonist. In the way of the head, the protagonist is the non-existent ego. And in the way of the heart, it is God itself. So when I say true spirituality is not about you, it is about God. This is the fruit of that. If you put God in the center, then this is the way of the heart. If it is still about me, God for me, and not God for God's sake, it's still the way of the head.
God is very generous and gave me.
God is very generous.
Yeah. And gave me 2 masters.
You're still on that, is it? Okay.
Because the other one is teasing me and he's putting me in satsang. From a distance. Or a bad distance. And I don't know if he placed me in a place and I ran away. And it's just very hard to live with that.
Yes.
Like there is a strong guilt feel.
Exactly.
And because I don't know if I did wrong.
Yeah, I wanted
By
to
your
thank
view.
you. This is exactly the point I wanted to make, which is that in the way of faith, to follow God's will, it sounds so simple and beautiful conceptually, but you'll find a lot of burning will happen. And I don't want to reassure that burning too much, because that burning is very auspicious, it's very important. The only reassurance I've given is that remember what can burn. Remember what can burn. You may actually believe that this is the most difficult thing that can happen. Such a difficult thing. I have to pick which is my real master.
Not even that. It's more like, am I doing something wrong?
Am I doing something wrong? Am I in the right place? Would you realize one day that all this is...
It should be rubbish.
It's
But
candy stuff. It's popcorn and candy.
So I'm burning.
And yet if it is burning, then what can burn? What can burn?
That's not true.
Only that which is not true.
And I don't like, I put my mind into it and painful place and surrender. even stronger.
Yes, you can't do it with one eye open. If you surrendered, then how do you know it's stronger? It's none of your business anymore. You cannot surrender and continue to have it as your business. You surrendered means it's my problem. See, or in this case, both are problem, whatever the case. Yeah. So then, why are you getting involved?
Out of fear.
Because there's still something that you want.
Freedom.
The wanting itself is the absence of freedom. Even the wanting of freedom.
Papaji says the desire
No.
for freedom.
One
We go one step more.
Bhagwan, I was sitting at Arunachala and Arunachala spoke to me. Let go of what you want.
Oh, you need to kill it to me.
Let go of what you want.
What if I go to the beach tomorrow and get married with some Filipino guy and I
If
want
that's
two
God's
children?
will, that's the risk you have to take. If that's God's will. What is the price that you are unwilling to pay to follow God's will? And remember, I said to let go of what you want doesn't mean to do the opposite of what the mind is saying. It is to be empty. To be empty. Make yourself empty for God to enter. This is the true meaning of to die to yourself. It's to become empty of oneself. Where is the space for God otherwise? I said so often the lane is too narrow. You cannot have a me and God. And what is the me made up of? It is made up of your will, your individual desire, your individual righteousness, your individual judgment, your intellectual notions, your conceptual notions about your life, your narratives. You want to keep them and get God. Become empty, invisible to yourself. So invisible that you have to strain hard. What do I want? Not because I'm confused, because I have too many wants. I want this and I want that, so I'm confused. Not that. It's just that you can't find anything. You just, if a genie came, you see, and said, okay, what do you want? You said, I can't find it. Because who? That is to become empty. That is to trust. That is to have faith. It is completely unreasonable, irrational. You cannot do it in half measures. You cannot have a safety net. And this is why I'm finding that for most of you the insight is apparent. But the attraction from the mind's proposals of your individual want, your individual will, still seems to have a lot of magnetism. So to surrender to God's will is the antidote to that. And that's why my feeling is so strongly about this, that I don't want to be called a teacher, master, guru, any of that. I just want to be a servant to God, a servant of God. If this life can be spent in service to God's will, I can not give myself a higher gift than that. Find out now then, what does God want? I've shown you how, I've told you how. Why are we being so flimsy about it? This is what I mean by weak foundation. God is your foundation now, I've shown you how. Now, it's only our idea that, oh, that God cannot do, that God cannot decide. For this I have to do it by myself. And life will keep throwing situations at you. And you feel that you have to decide. What is God's will? It's pretty clear what is your will in the sense that you want freedom. Whichever shop you can get it best.
Whatever that means.
Whichever shop you can get it, you want to be there. Yeah? What does God want? What does God want?
Guruji says, why wouldn't he fulfill so many wishes? Why wouldn't he fulfill this one too?
Those are bonuses we get. That is God's mercy on us. In spite of our delusions, there's so much love He feels for us that He blesses us in this way. But they are not entitlements. You cannot say, why can I not get that gift?
I'm not saying why can I get.
Yes.
I'm saying hope dies last.
Our cleverest thoughts will not help us. Our cleverest thoughts will not help us. Do you have the Japji side? Japji side?
My mind is very cunning, Ananta-ji.
Yeah, that's why I said the cleverest thoughts cannot help you.
It's too hyperactive. You know, all that knowledge you tell me, I go home, I try to implement it, whatever you say. And sometimes I have beautiful experiences. Everything I really experience whatever you say.
Yeah.
And what happens? 1 second I come out of it. The mind it takes one step further and it says, "Oh no, you have to come back. Oh no, you have to." It gets so hyperactive. Trying to
use my method. So what do you want? The mind cannot trouble you unless you want something.
I want to
I
go
want to
deeper and
go deeper. Forget about it. Who are you to want to go deeper? Let God decide. Just live in the foundation of God. I'm not saying do the opposite. That's a very important point. Mind saying go deeper, so I should not go anywhere. No, I'm saying forget about it means don't have a notion of it and allow God. God may say go deeper, but have you checked? It's important to check. And when the guidance does not come, live in God's light, so everything that unfolds happens in the auspicious light of God itself, in God's presence. Get it? It's actually very simple, and that's the problem. It leaves no room for the ego. Maybe just like a side thing to keep the mind occupied, we can make like a 12-step program for the mind to be busy with that. Well, really all this is happening. Every day. Do this, do that, do this, do that. So whole day it's busy. It doesn't get in your way to figure out something. But the hyperactivity of the mind in itself is not trouble to you. In itself, it does not trouble you. Like I shared this example. If you do not have to cross airport road, why count the cars on airport road? It's only because you think you have to do something with it or something has to change about it.
I believe it's true.
You believe it's true. Mm-hmm. Because maybe you want a quiet mind.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything about the mind becoming quiet. Only want what God wants. Only want what God wants. And if God wants, then God will pave the way as well. It's the simplest way to live.
So this moment is the best thing that we have.
Not even that.
Not even.
What is God saying? Don't rush to any conclusion. Even the most spiritual sounding, most humble, none of that. Empty. That's where open and empty comes in. As we open and empty, intuitive insight is apparent to us and God's presence is palpable. Yeah. So Guru Nanak Ji has said, "Soche soch na hove jo soche lakhwar," which means by thinking he cannot be reduced to thought, even by thinking hundreds of thousands of times. Chupe chup na hove jay lai raha livtar. By remaining silent, inner silence is not obtained, even by remaining lovingly absorbed deep within. Bhuk na utri, jay bana puriya bhar. Means the hunger of the hungry is not appeased, even by piling up loads of worldly goods. Sahasyapa lak hoi te ik na chaliye naal. Hundreds of thousands of clever tricks, but not even one of them will go along with you in the end. These are the clever tactics of the mind and the tricks of the mind. Then kiv satyara hoy, kiv kore tutte pal. How can you become truthful, and how can the veil of illusion be torn away? Hukum rajai chalna, Nanak likhya naal. O Nanak, it is written that you shall obey the hukum of his command and walk in the way of his will. It's very straightforward. Very straightforward. All the tricks are listed down. All the tactics which are not going to work are listed down. And what to do is spelled out very clearly.
There is nothing to know and nothing to know.
This is still you. Empty, empty. I was reading somewhere yesterday exactly the word that have been coming up from here, which is that those of you now who know intuitively, you had insight, you have guidance, it's more difficult for you in the sense that you have no excuses left. You have no excuses left. You see, at least for those seekers who are still trying to find God objectively, yeah, that's we were told that we are supposed to look for God. We are looking. You see? But after being told you will not find objectively, if you still keep looking that way, you see, then that is a folly, that is a mistake. You see? If by telling you over and over that you cannot do it through your mental tactics, you still keep doing it, you have no excuse. The war zone and all the weapons on either side, everything is now made clear to you. Now you have no excuses. You see, and every excuse looks like only one thing actually. Every excuse is me plus God. Me plus God. Whatever it may be. Me, please, plus God. All the but, all the this and that, and all the tantrums and all the things all have the same message. I want me and God. Not possible. You want to swim and ride the horse at the same time. It's not going to work. It's not possible. Are you going to swim or ride the horse? You have to decide. But you cannot have both. That's why I'm saying it's not a comfortable spirituality. It's not a, like people say, what are your hobbies? Oh, I go to satsang.
Even if I have to travel to work.
Because in the job interview, what are your hobbies? Oh, I have a spiritual teacher. That's not what this is.
But,
It's not meant to make your life simpler, easier. Although it does. But it is not an inclusion into your life. Is it? It's not something that you can plug into your life and say, ah, yes, I have balanced my life. It requires an utter surrender, a complete giving up. It's like, to continue, to belabor a metaphor. How many of you know what DOS was? Some of us know that word. DOS, disk operating system. So now, disk operating system used to be the operating system on the computer, the first computer I had. Then
OS, yeah.
the OS. So to want to have the way of the mind and to have the way of the heart is to want DOS and Mac OS, whatever to work together and collaborate. Just not gonna happen. To do one Dell root star dot star or something. I think Linux used to have that. Full system cleanup. What is that command on Linux where you could just wipe out everything? It doesn't even ask you for confirmation. What?
RM, remove RM
RM?
minus T.
Something.
So, Father, when you say surrender your individual will completely, surrender, don't want, surrender it completely to God, it's not only a burning which is caused, but it's also there's also a joy emanating from it.
Joy.
There's a deep joy emanating from it.
Yeah. Because the aspect I haven't mentioned is the deep longing, the deep calling from your heart, which is being fulfilled in this. There's been a deep longing, a deep call of your heart, which is now coming to some satisfaction. And you come to satsang because you're tired of the old way anyway. You're coming to fulfillment of the new way. All of you are walking on the path of faith beautifully because you're confirming the presence of God. You're confirming the vastness of your inner life. Although it is completely irrational. Even to say inner life is not rational. What inner life? Is it? In the mind's version of life, you are the body. Inside you, inside the body are only flesh, blood, organs, bones. So to confirm that you have an inner life, you have a presence which is palpable, you are aware, boundlessly aware. The recognition of it is effortless, but the acceptance of it in the seeming outer life is an act of faith already. Because it is irrational, it is unreasonable that you're finding the boundless within you. How can that ever be rational? Within itself is a boundary, but you confirm that the boundless you are finding within you, and you know it is not a lie because it is known beyond conceptual understanding. To share this, to live this is an act of faith, is to live in faith. And you're realizing that it is only the sharing of this faith which we can truly call love. love cannot really be called love unless God is involved now. Because a godless love is a love of Maya, is a love of delusion. And now knowing the truth to spread delusion cannot be love. Knowing the truth to spread lies cannot be love anymore. Doesn't mean that you force it if you feel like there's a lot of closeness. But also accept that many times the price for love is to get hate in return. You have to accept that if love is to point to the reality, the truest truth that you are finding, and you cannot bear to lie to your beloved, and the beloved could be a stranger you meet on the road. Then accept that many times you will feel that you were attacked in response to your love. And many of you are going to share this in your own way. And it is inevitable that as you share from your heart, you will get a lot of fight back from the mind. Sometimes I get into delusions of grandeur or something. I feel like, wow, this was a great satsang. Everybody must love me or something. I go back home and I open my messages. It's tantrum 1, tantrum 2, tantrum 3, tantrum 4, tantrum 5. That keeps my arrogance in check. So know that the deeper you are sharing the truth, the more the mind is going to give you hate in return or attack in return. Don't get attached to those outcomes. As long as you're being true to yourself, you're not lying just to be nice. It's very easy to mollycoddle. It's very easy. All of you come, you love me so much, you trust me so much. I could easily just every day mollycoddle you and say, very good, excellent. But am I helping in any way with that? In fact, if you were to look at the natural expression of this man, it is to be very approving, nice. The fire that comes in satsang is because my heart directs me in that way. And I cannot share in opposition to how my heart is directing me.
To follow your heart.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was like this at the beginning or everything went easily because it's a kind of frustration and restlessness to be waiting, to kind of get at least something to move or to spend a 1 hour kind of, am I able to move or shall I please? Or it's like,
Yes.
it's like this, because I remember that Guruji was also trying his kind of limits to move with this. He was telling that he was feeling so much joy, but afterwards he he was stopped in a and after sometimes he was taking a book or something with himself to show that he's not kind of not crazy, but he's doing something. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
To pretend that he was not sitting or staying for 1 hour there without
He's just
doing
sitting,
anything.
then everybody starts to get very concerned. No? So you have to show that
Yes,
doing
like-
something.
So it's like you have to find your kind of movement with your spirit, with your heart. I just trying yesterday, it was like hours of can I move? But it's like maybe
It's
so
very
in
good,
my way.
It's the best sadhana ever. To allow yourself to remain in the unknown and not move till you're guided from the heart. That burning is very auspicious. It's very auspicious. Of course, it's burning. So, you know what happens? Everyone says, please burn me, Father. Burn everything that is there. And we feel like once that request is made, then the burning will not actually feel like burning. Huh? And it's true that once we are open, resistance doesn't feel like resistance anymore. You see? But we still have blind spots. You see, we still have blind spots. We did not know that we're still so attached to being right about something. You see?
Yeah.
So when that starts burning, it comes like burning. And we say, oh, this is really burning. You say, but that is what you wanted. Yeah. But then, without saying it, the response usually is, but I didn't know that this is going to burn, or this has to burn. I didn't even know that I had this.
But the fool, I feel that there are a lot of things because even you to move, if you would like really to do like Guruji, like every movement, to be in alignment always, it's I have to start somewhere. And it feels like this is the core of the whole
This is
thing.
the
And you
core.
realize that how many blind spots you have, you are full. I just
This is the core, no? Exactly, yes.
and I haven't known that I am full with so many years. Even now. That's
Yes. And this is where even our mind uses spirituality to save us, to save itself. No? Even open and empty actually, which is like just so empty. You see? The mind can say but just be open and empty. So no defense, no Advaita defense, nothing will work. Just full on. It's the end of all our tactics. Because next moment you don't know how you will be guided in the heart. You don't know what will come. You see? And to trust that unwaveringly is to really have taken a bet on this life. It's God's. And that's why the instruction to die to yourself says, of course, I need to keep making sure I keep reminding everyone of this. It has nothing to do with the physical death or the death of the body in any way. Die to your righteousness, die to your ideas about yourself. Basically, the submission of the individual will, the ego, to God's light, to God's presence. And that's what I mean by saying that this is not a comfortable armchair spirituality or a lip service spirituality, because I am loving your report as you're saying it, because I know you moved out of that spirituality into this fire now.
But I know that this is true, but it's
Yes.
it's really
Yes.
I see now that, oh my goodness.
Yes.
Not only now starts the work to do you think. Till now it was like just
I'm getting this, yeah, awareness.
I was pretending a lot of things, but now it's like, oh, this is a full risk. It's
Full risk. Yes.
It's
Only for full risk we need faith.
yeah.
What is the point of faith if there's no risk?
And, yeah, but I know this is the only truth. It's and yeah.
It's very good. It's very good. It's only now, actually, after 11 years of sharing, 11, 12 years of sharing satsang, for the first time I'm feeling like I just want to ask everyone. I want to ask everyone on the streets and whoever I meet, if I go in an auto rickshaw, I want to ask them, have you found God in your heart? Have you looked at God in your heart? Because what do I have to lose? They may tell me to get out of the auto. What do I have to lose? But suppose 1 in 1,000 that I meet, they actually become open to this. I never had a sort of missionary approach to this at all for so many years. But maybe something was sheepishly hiding in that. Because if my master showed me the highest gift, then why am I so diffident to ask the brothers and sisters of this planet? So a lot more of this conversation is happening now at work. Somebody came to meet us the other day about completely something else at work, and we sort of got into this conversation. They said they'll come to satsang. So because truly this had a deep impact on me as I read Kierkegaard saying, love is not love unless God is involved.
I'm a crazy one because I can't talk even with my daughter. I found myself always talking about this, but Father, can you're again talking about these things.
Same.
So, but I am forced, kind of. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy because
Same,
with
same,
everyone. But I was thinking that I am really kind of something is not right with me because Guruji was not talking even with his own brother at the deathbed because he couldn't say. I always want to keep myself kind of quiet, but it's not possible. But I would like to ask your advice because it was a very deep touching. There is a kind of one of the latest satsang in the Sahaja Express. At the end of the satsang, Guruji is talking about if there would be a fire in Sahaja, and there would be everyone is cold and the siren is going on and everyone comes and everyone is there in the place and we found out that one is missing.
Huh?
One is missing.
One is missing, yes.
Wouldn't be someone that would go and would you go without him happily? would you be happy? And he said, wouldn't we at least want to say that, okay, let's find him and
Yes.
come. And this was one, but the last minute was like, if you would be entering nirvana,
Yeah.
or the heaven, and it's saying that now hurry, because now it's closing the door,
Yeah.
and you hear someone struggling behind you, and you wouldn't go back and help him and take with you, or just remain with him, kind of, because this is the same like Judisthira before taking the carriage to take to the heaven. He said, no, if you want get the dog with me, I remain here. This is staying for me with a long time, and so like, because at the beginning of the spirituality you have to kind of push the whole thing to go alone, but it seems like now it's the same like with Jesus. Call everyone. You have to make available to everyone. So this is the
He said
meeting the whole
also
thing.
that if you're a shepherd, you know that even if one sheep is missing, you will leave the 99 to get the one back. Huh?
No, Jesus.
So he said that. So what is like? There's so many conceptual difficulties in everything that we think we have to decide. No? So what is it showing us? That we don't have the capacity really in our heads to come to the final answer. So you can only meet life moment to moment from the heart. From the heart, intuitively allow yourself to be guided, because to do what is good, what is right, it's impossible to really say. You take that typical example in spirituality to say somebody comes to your car like a beggar and says, can I have some money? You cannot decide in advance. You cannot decide, no, I don't give, or I always give. People have that because it helps them not be confused in that moment. But really it's important to remain empty, because then your heart can guide you moment to moment. And doesn't mean that it has to lead to the best outcomes, because even those best outcomes, we can't really fathom what the best outcome would be. Maybe that outcome plays out over 200 years. We can't say. So we just have to trust the deeper intelligence, God's presence. Yes.
The beggar example, it's something, because we were in Tiruvannamalai, there are many beggars. And I remember myself thinking, I got to have a couple of 10 rupees bills for the beggars.
Yeah.
And when the first came, I said, how many should I spare up, because there are some more coming. And that's really the opposite of just letting God decide.
It's a great satsang to be in Tiru.
Yeah.
Because I spent 8 months there. At the beginning I was like, then realized after 2 months that, oh man, my money village in you busy if I didn't realize it. Like, there's no end of.
It was full on.
Change all your bank account in 10 rupees bills.
Even if you will, this is.
No, you won't, right?
Father?
Yes.
So Yesterday I was talking to my mother in the car, and I told her very, very clearly, I said, this life is only for God, you know.
Yeah.
And I had never said it in that way. And we don't really talk about God,
Yes, yeah.
my mom and I. But I said it so clearly, and I just told her, and I said, and if that means that I don't live up to your expectations, or
Yes.
this life looks strange,
Yes.
then that's okay. And I wanted her to know that, you know.
Yes.
And she was quiet for a while. She went silent and like contemplative,
Yeah.
and not just externally silent.
Yes,
She
yes.
was internally silent as well. I was very surprised by it, actually. And then she finally said, well, as long as I'm alive, I support you in that.
Very good. Very
As long
good.
as
Very
I'm here.
good. Very nice.
So, yeah.
Very nice. Yes. This is very good. Very good.
And every day there's just miracle upon miracle upon miracle.
Very good. Very good.
And not glorious,
Yes.
magnificent spiritual
Yeah.
experiences, like ordinary,
Yeah.
constantly ordinary, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't explain it.
Yes. Yeah. This itself is a beautiful miracle for me, where a parent can just let go of their projections and aspirations for their child and even say, I'll support you as long as I'm there. It's very beautiful, very, very touched by this. Yes. Very good, very good.
Can you repeat what her mother said? I didn't
She said she went quiet for a long time,
Yeah.
and then she said, well, as long as I am alive, I will support you
Wow.
in this.
Yes.
Yes, it was really smooth.
To take our outer life to be our full life, or to take our outer life to even be a majority of our life, is to live in a comfortable hell, and many times not comfortable. So the switching over is actually a very urgent matter. Switching over to the way of the heart is actually a very important and urgent matter, more than anything else that I can imagine. Imagine we live in denial of this. We live in denial of God. Our brothers and sisters, our families, our extended family, if humanity lives in denial of this. We take death to be death. To take death to be death, and then use all sort of strategies and tactics to try and not think about it. Distract ourselves with attachments and desires. Because the conceptual meaninglessness and the nothingness of all of this, without the recognition of God's light, can seem very, very scary for most. You see? If this outer was all there is, and we were just this body moving from birth to death, I would have to create a mental system to avoid myself going insane. Find some meaning in something here, you see, so that I don't confront the meaninglessness of it. That is why so much hankering in every way for materialistic meaning, for conceptual meaning, for some sort of. Everybody says, I want to make my life worthwhile, I want to find my purpose, I want to find my meaning. There's so many books on that, and they usually sell very well also. All as a balm to not face the meaninglessness of a personal existence. In fact, that was the whole first chapter in the Yoga Vasisht with Ram's dispassion. He looked at everything and said, this is just pointless. He looks at everything. The so-called fun of childhood, he said, all rubbish, just concept. Mostly children are crying. So he looked at every aspect of life. He said, pointless. And one day we just die like this. So without the discovery of our inner self, our true self, it's a horrific existence actually. And we must never look down upon our brothers and sisters because they are trying to cope. They're just trying to cope with this. If they take to bad habits and to materialistic desire and all of that, it is just a way to cope. They're just trying to make the best of it. The best of what they think life is. So it's never coming from a place of arrogance. Only coming from a place of true service, true help. I was an atheist till I was 23 years old, and then I was hiding behind science and entertainment, pop culture. Those were my coping mechanism. I didn't realize, but my distractions were just like, oh, this, and then living in mental fantasies. Without the discovery of this, provisionally what I'm calling the inner, what is this? Without the discovery of the timeless reality, this is a horrible game. You might as well be some bacteria or something just in a soup bowl or something like that. What? But to come to God's light just changes all of it. To come to divinity is just a game changer. There is really nothing in this one to be able to say that oh, because of this I deserve the truth, I deserve to find God. In just pure grace. There's nothing that entitled me to the discovery of God. In fact, I was a big, like very vocal non-believer. I used to say God is for losers. What I meant was idiots and fools. So, every day I'm more and more awestruck by God's light, by His grace. And I'm probably saying this every day, but we can invoke God. We have a name for God. God, Ram, Krishna, Allah, Jesus. We can invoke God. That's just staggering. So unbelievable. That supreme being, if we can't even call it being, the supreme reality is rememberable, is recognizable. Just an instant of that takes away all the ideas of meaninglessness and nihilism and pointlessness of life. And the privilege of being able to utter God. Just like any other word on the face of it, but invoking something so far out from human understanding. To be able to be given the words to share His light, to allow this mouth to be used as an instrument of God's light. It's an unbelievable privilege. And completely grace, because nothing so deserving was here. So this contemplation about who is a worthy teacher of God has been here, has been alive for a few weeks, some of you know. And I feel like this is definitely an aspect of that. Only those who recognize the privilege in this, the great honor of this. Of course, I feel like more and more it is just clear to me, and reading about thousands and thousands, not just a few that are popularly known, but thousands of ones who were just sharing God's light from their heart and they were put to death in this world. I feel like only one who can say that they're willing to die in response to sharing the truths ultimately can be called a true teacher of God. But it's not even just that, it's so much more. So much more. But many times in bravado also we can say, oh, yes, right. So although at some level it's a very simple question, the simplest answer is that if you've seen the light for yourself, you of course can lead to that light. And therefore everyone can be a teacher of God. If you found the light for yourself, of course that much is a basic requirement. But that is not difficult for those in Satsang. So from that starting point to really complete surrender of one's will and if required lives, an utter lack of selfishness is very important also. Because the human ego, once put on a pedestal, can play some very weird tricks on you. So if there's selfishness and desire which still overwhelms anyone, then for their own sake it's not advisable. The willingness to take on every affliction from every one of their children, whether the child is even asking for that or no. But every phenomenal affliction, energetic, whatever, not as if it is a sacrifice that, oh, I'm willing to do this for my Sangha. Not even that, just as a matter of how we would do it for our children. As parents, we all know we've said, when we've seen our children suffering, we said, just give it to me, just give it. God, give it to me instead. In that same sense. And yet at the same time, follow your heart when the burning is happening, because it is going to happen in the light of God. The ego is going to burn. So to unwaveringly follow your heart, God's will, makes a true teacher of God. There are many aspects, so beautiful actually. Right from just the unselfish willingness to share God with a brother or sister makes you worthy. But it doesn't stop there. Complete sacrifice of everything that the world can offer to you may also be needed actually. And we must not be under any delusion that today's world is a different world. It's the same world. If belief systems are questioned, the ego will have the same reaction.
When you utter the word God, something is bringing me out to search for a form. If it's the supreme, the absolute, there are no forms. I'm in the formless.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say God, then which God, which form? It's.
Change the word, it's okay.
I
Because
didn't. It's now.
sometimes the word.
It's today coming out. Before it wasn't.
First, see if it's a mind trick. If the mind is just telling you something and it's not really this thing, then don't worry. But if you feel like there's a deep conditioning, because many have this.
No, it's something deeper coming out.
Many have this because of some childhood
Yes.
conditioning and things like that about the word God. So then say consciousness or
Yeah.
the Brahman or whatever. When I say God, you hear consciousness. It's okay.
Yeah.